guys, welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. I'm your host, Rebel Saklocha, and today we are sitting down with someone who truly embodies innovation and the forward-thinking mindset that our industry desperately needs. He rode professionally in both the PBR and the PRCA, has worked for Beastmaster Rodeo, and is now spearheading some of his own initiatives and entrepreneurial pursuits. I'm visiting with Nic Lica. He's a recently retired bull rider and entrepreneur. Nic, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
So, before we get too far into things, one of the most enjoyable parts of hosting the podcast is getting to learn from people in all facets of rodeo. But what I think is really fun is getting a glimpse into where these people came from. Nic, you have a really unique story. How did you find your home in rodeo?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. So, I'm originally from California. I was born in California, but I was raised in Garden City, Michigan. And Garden City, Michigan is a suburb inside the Detroit metro area. And one year when I was in junior high, I was out visiting my mother in California, and Oakdale is where she lived. And obviously, Oakdale claims to be the cowboy capital of the world, but we all know that Stephenville, Texas probably is, or is the cowboy capital of the world. And I saw my first rodeo there ever. And a guy that I was working for throughout the summer had got me into bull riding. And then I transitioned back. When I came back that after summer, I came back to Michigan, and I told my father, who had never had any idea or thoughts of rodeo, and I said, "Hey, I got into riding bulls, and I really want to do this." And he was like, "What in the world are you even talking about?" And so found the Michigan High School Rodeo Association, and from there on, my whole trajectory of being involved in rodeo was completely, it was mind blowing how I got into it. In all honesty.
Absolutely. Well, it's no secret that there are plenty barriers to entry when it comes to getting involved in rodeo, whether that just be resources, knowledge, what have you. What made you really lean into bull riding and rodeo in particular and say, hey, this is something that I really want to pursue and take seriously?
So actually, I thought bronc riding was a lot cooler. I didn't really want to be a bull rider. The gentleman who got me started, named Dave Wells, he just it was the easiest one to get involved with. But I don't know, I always laugh that people in rodeo are a bunch of misfits, and we all just kind of link together, and it's like this community. And I just felt so like I fit in. Like the first time I was there, I was like, okay, these are my people, and they liked horses, they liked just the Western way of life. And honestly, I just wanted to be a cowboy. I thought it was so cool to be a cowboy, and I thought it was so cool that cowboys got to wear their buckles, their championships on their belts. And I was like, someday I'm gonna get a buckle.
That's amazing. What was your family's initial reaction, and how did they support you through the process of getting involved and taking it to the next level?
I think any parent that's from inner city Detroit's initial reaction is definitely like, what on earth are you even thinking? But that being said, my parents have been extremely supportive over all the years. My father is a huge fan of rodeo and PBR specifically. He's just always super excited. My wife is involved in rodeo. She's a specialty act, PRCA specialty act. She check rides and Roman rides. So my family in general, now it's all encompassing. At first, it was very much they didn't understand it. I always laugh about the first time we ever went to a high school rodeo, and my parents saw goat tying, and they did not even know what was going on. They were like, "What is going on right now?" It was shocking to them, but the people in rodeo, like always, they're nice, they're kind, they're welcoming, and honestly, they treated me and my family great. So.
Most definitely. Well, as far as your career riding bulls is concerned, you recently retired from being on that side of the game. What influenced that decision, and how has that step away been for you?
Yeah, that was like last week. So we had a huge content shoot at Beastmaster. We invited out a bunch of our sponsored athletes, and I kind of had a hunch as it got closer to time that I wanted to get on one more bull, because a year and a half ago, in February of last year, I went to a bull. I went to my last pro rodeo in Indianapolis. There was the world's toughest rodeo there. It's the FFA convention. It's always in the fall. I got bucked off. I was really frustrated with bull riding, and so I sat out for about 3 or 4 months and really got my things right and was, just doing all the things, being prepared to ride. And then I went to a little amateur event. A good buddy of mine puts on bull riding up in Michigan there, and I went there and I ended up riding both my bulls and I won it. And I looked around the locker room to my left and to my right, and I realized that I was the oldest guy there, which maybe if I'd been at a pro rodeo or something, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal. I would have seen all my buddies, and I might have had a different, put on my heart from God. But I looked left, looked right, and I was like, man, I think I'm getting past my time here in the rodeo world. So I didn't understand at the time. I told my wife that I thought I was going to be done. And then a big deal with that was literally a week later. It's funny how God works. We found out we were having our first child, Hadley Reese. And so we've had her now. She's 7 months old. And so, it was such a blessing, but I struggled for like the whole year and a half. Like I didn't really want to be done, but I knew I probably should be done. I wasn't being as competitive as I'd like to be. I just love competition. I love competing. I love rodeo. I love riding bulls. And so I struggled for like a year and a half. But the other day on Wednesday, I've been telling everyone it was probably the most best closure a guy could ever ask for. So it was on my time with my good friends on a just cool bull, but it was like for the love of it. It was for the pureness of it. There was no money involved. It didn't matter. It was just for the purity of the love of riding bulls. And I, that moment was so great. It was such great closure, and I feel like I can now step away from bull riding and just be happy with what my career was. Because not to go down this hole, but I think so many of us just wish we could have done more, or would have done more, or had more accolades, or achieved more. But the truth is, how did you treat people along the way? Did you leave the industry better than you came into it? And did you try hard and have heart? Those are the things that I think define athletes at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I love that story. Well, I think so many athletes fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm just going to rodeo forever and don't necessarily consider what's next for them, whether that's personally or professionally. But you have kind of taken on different roles in the industry, whether that be in the arena or outside of it. Talk about your role with Beastmaster Rodeo and what that has looked like over the last 10 years.
Yeah, so when I was rodeoing, I just always knew I needed a job that I could go rodeo and come back, because a lot of people don't want you to work for them and be gone that much because you're gone all the time, especially if you do it for a living. And so I had a bum knee at one point, tore my ACL and stuff, and I was just kind of working some side jobs, and I got a phone call. I was actually at a bull riding, and I was just hanging out, and this guy asked me, it was my roommate's friend, and he asked me what I was doing. I was like, man, I'm honestly looking for a job. And he's like, well, would you be able to, run a rodeo gear business? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he told me about Beastmaster, and I'd kind of heard of it. I didn't know it that well at the time. And I actually had been there one time and didn't realize it. But anyways, in a nutshell, his father, Tim Titman, hit me up. He called me up. It was literally Christmas season. So like Christmas is a really busy season here at the company. And I showed up in this huge warehouse, and he actually started the company. So a guy named Dennis Schmidt started it, and it was all pretty much bareback riggins, and it did have some rodeo gear, and it was based out of Colorado. And I don't know Dennis and never met him, but my boss used to buy gear from him. And one day he decided he was done. He was going to sell the business, and my boss was just like, well, how much do you want for it? And so he shot him a number. He's a big entrepreneur. And so he decided that, yeah, I'll do it, because he believed in the equipment. He knew that Dennis was a good guy, good quality. So he brought it back. So he's running it out of his garage, out of his barn. His kids are doing all this stuff. Everyone's involved. And then they got to a point where, they needed someone to kind of help manage it a little bit better. And so they brought it here to where their facilities are, where they got a bunch of different businesses. And they put me in this huge, I don't know how many thousand square foot facility it is, but it was all on the ground, just sitting there in a pile. And he was like, good luck. And so, and what that did was it just gave me opportunity to be able to go rodeo, and it gave me opportunity to have a job. And it was so cool because we had such a good relationship with my flexibility and freedom, but yet I was out in the industry. I was talking to guys. I never tried to sell to anybody. Like, that was my big thing. I didn't want to be a salesman. I didn't want to go around trying to promote things. I just asked questions to guys, what they liked, what they didn't like. I always used our gear, so people would come up to me and say, "Hey, what's this, or why do you have that?" And honestly, I was just I guess I don't know what the word would be, but I was just really trying to grow within the space and learn more than anything. I didn't come in with this mindset that I knew everything or that I knew what guys liked or didn't like. I came from more of like a opportunity mindset of like, okay, how can I help fix issues in the industry and make this gear space better?
Most definitely. Well, rodeo has certainly changed dramatically in the last 10 years. What changes have you witnessed just through the lens of equipment and what people are interested in?
I'll tell you the biggest thing, because we were talking about the other day at OPA, is like the entering system before you get into gear and stuff, but like how you enter rodeos. Like back when I first started when I was a kid, you had the old PSN out and you were circling and highlighting and have to call Procom and talk on the phone with someone and get confirmation numbers. And now it's just on an app. Like you just enter, boom, done. It's super robust and mainstream, which is so great for rodeo athletes. I'll never forget when Shane Proctor and I were driving one time to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he's like, "Oh, I need to enter so and so," and he's like, "Oh," and he kind of got frustrated, and I was like, "Wait, you can still enter. It doesn't close till tomorrow morning." He's like, "Wow, I can enter a rodeo at midnight. This is awesome." So that was kind of cool. But the gear revolutionizing, I don't know if I've seen a lot change. We've just tried to make them better in regards to, quality, maybe safety or protection. We always just try to take a product and make it better. You know what I mean? We've done a really good job with our bull ropes, with just having high quality stock bull ropes all the time. That's a really hard thing to do. My hat's off to a couple of my team members that have helped provide that service, because we are a lot of it is made right here in house in Fort Wayne, Indiana, but then things like that as well, they're resourced out from other places and whatnot.
Most definitely. Well, working for an entrepreneur kind of gives you a microdose to what it's like to be an entrepreneur yourself. What lessons have you taken away from working with or for Beastmaster that kind of sparked the idea that maybe you wanted to one day start something of your own?
Yeah, I had no idea that I had an entrepreneurial heart, let alone a business mindset. But what Beastmaster has given me is just so many tools to understand the whole retail market. Every other year we go to WISA, which is the big Western industry, wholesale there in Dallas. It used to be in Denver. Everyone who's involved in the Western industry is usually there. It's just, I've learned so many lessons from him and from the company. The biggest thing that I always just put my little spin on it was just always treat people the way you want to be treated. Like customers, I think one thing about Beastmaster that people never can believe is like when they call, they get a human, they get me usually. I've kind of thankfully passed that torch a little bit as the years have gone on, but for years you got me. And if I missed your call, I called you back. And you wouldn't believe the amount of people that are mind blown if you call them back and just say, "Hey, this is Nick. I missed your call. I apologize. Is there anything I can do to help?" And so we just always try to treat people the way we would want to be treated. We try to be turnaround quick on shipping and orders, but it's taught me a lot about just running a business, seeing how it works, understanding that success isn't overnight. Like we all hear that and we understand that, and a lot of people do want instant gratification, but true success and true businesses that are going to grow and stay intact for years don't blow up overnight.
Definitely. Well, last week I was scrolling on Facebook and my younger brother rides bulls, so I kind of just keep my eye out for different things. And I came across a post that was promoting the Licabell, and which is initially what, drew me to reach out to you to have our conversation today. Talk about that product and where the idea came from.
Yeah. So my name obviously is Nic Lica, Lica, and the bell. So a guy told me one time, if you can ever put your name on something, that's very powerful. And so at the time, I had no idea this was going to happen, but it turns out that this bell is like a bell. And so it's just great that my last name works well with that. So I thought it was a really funny marketing scheme, and I just think it's hilarious. And everyone who knows me thinks it's funny, so that's awesome. And it just has a great fit. But how it really happened was last year, Brent with Hooked Up Enterprises, which is a bullfighting gear company. They do jerseys and whatnot. He had reached out to me because a friend of mine by the name of Dayton Spiel, he's from South Dakota or North Dakota, I believe. He was fighting, he's a bullfighter at the Mobridge PRCA rodeo. And I don't know specifically if he lost his eye, but he was hit in the eye by a bell. And I do know that, I don't know if he has complete, like if he can see out of it or what now, but he had complications because of that. And they reached out to me and asked if there was anything I could do to fix this situation. And, immediately I was like, all right, well, that is a really good idea. That's definitely something I can help out with. Let me see what I can come up with. And so it took some time. I knew it had to be soft. I knew I really wanted it to be like a rubber type material. I knew that it had to look like a bell. It had to be the same weight as a bell. I knew it had to have all the characteristics of a bell. The only thing that, the big controversy on the internet right now is it doesn't make noise. And the truth is, when bells get stepped on by the animal, they actually don't make noise anymore. The dinger or whatever you want to call it is now flattened and it can't make noise. Now, some riders will have two bells, and that's why you will hear some clanging and banging underneath them. But all a bell's purpose is to actually pull the rope off the animal. It is weight on the rope, and it just pulls the rope off. And the rule books state that the ropes must have a bell. And I think the main reason why I spoke to stock contractors and whatnot, why they like the ropes to come off, because if you think about like a bareback horse or a saddle bronc horse, they run out of the arena with the equipment still on them, but bulls don't. But a lot of the bull contractors were explaining to me that a lot of times that as that rope comes off, it's almost like a cue that the animal is done. I know that obviously when the rider falls off, typically they know they're done, but it's kind of a release, and they train them from calves like that, when they have the futurity dummies on them and whatnot. So it just pulls the rope off. And so I just decided that, once them guys had given me that idea, I went and did some testing. It took quite a while because I was not experienced in the material industry of that type of thing, the rubbers and resins and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's made of rubber. It weighs a little bit more actually than a real bell, but like I'm talking like a real bell weighs 15 ounces. This is like 15.7 ounces, and it functions just like a bell.
Awesome. Well, I'd like you to dig a little bit deeper into the product development process because I think anybody who has any entrepreneurial skills or desire is kind of can get intimidated by, mock-ups and designing. And if you're going to put your name on a product, like you mentioned, you want it to be good quality. How many trial and error processes did you go through before you got to a product that you were satisfied with?
Yeah. Well, first thing I can tell you that my boss always taught me is don't worry about trying to be the smartest guy in the world in the room. Try to find people that are smarter than you, and they can help you answer your questions. So I went to a guy that I knew who was smarter than me in these type of materials, and so thankfully his name is Joe. Joe Titman. He's actually my boss's cousin, and I worked with Joe for 10 years. Great guy. And so him and he didn't really understand what I was doing, but I explained to him like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to accomplish this. And so we just kind of started messing with 3D printing molds. The first one we ever did was actually 3D printed, but it was really hard and it was solid and it actually hurt really bad. So that wasn't a good one. And then we tried some other materials. They were too soft, some ripped too easy. So there was definitely some testing. And honestly, if I have to be straight up right now, like it's not a complete, like I only plan to make it better, right? Like I feel like that's the one thing about me is I'm never like, I don't just hit it and then I'm done. Like, okay, how can we make it cleaner looking? How can we make it stronger? How can we make them, last longer? Can we put, I have plans on doing customs. Can you put your logos on them, use them for awards? PBR teams put theirs, different colors. So like where we're at right now is ground level, Nic Lica in his garage pouring bells, just like straight up, entrepreneur, backyard guy, like just, ground level doing it on his own. But it's such a fun, like that's business in essence, right? Like understanding it from the beginning to the end. And the beauty is I have so much experience from when I started at Beastmaster, I was the only employee. So like I sewed the shafts, I shipped the packages, I built the bull pads, I ordered the products that we needed that were just buy and resell. So like I have all this background of running a business, and now I'm getting to go right back to the beginning of the ground level starting of now but I want to learn. I want to understand how this works so that I know that if someday when I grow this and there may be team members that I can explain to them how this process works and why we do things the way we do. And so, I mean, I think that, that's the funnest part about being an entrepreneur is the beauty of like getting to see it grow and evolve little by little.
That's so cool. I love the mental picture of Steve Jobs making computers in his garage and then Nick pouring bull bells in his garage too. That's pretty cool. So you were talking about, the story of the bullfighter in South Dakota that kind of spurred this whole initiative. Have you heard similar stories from other bullfighters that have kind of expressed concern or safety concerns about traditional bells?
Yeah, it is insane. So the coolest thing that happened, I'll answer your question just say, but the coolest thing that happened to me at the Optimal Performance Academy with Champion Living, I was there all last week or this week with them, putting on a bull riding academy. So a couple of the bull riders were my friends. They supported. They bought some bells. Andrew Alvidrez, Chase Doherty, some of them higher end bull riders that were there that were help coaching, and then some of the guys in the school bought them. And the bullfighters that were there had no clue that those bells existed, nor that they were using them. And I was standing in the arena when the one bullfighter grabbed the rope and he said, "What on earth is this?" And he like yells at his buddy, "Hey, look at this. Have you ever seen such a thing?" And he was just like, he was nerding out and like so ecstatic to see this product. And he said, like, "Who made this?" And I, ironically, was like, "Well, I did." And he was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "This is the nicest thing you could have ever done for us." It made me feel so good inside because that was the reason why I did it. When they reached out to me and they said that it was hurting bullfighters, my thing's this. I rode bulls for 19 years. Those guys saved us. Why can't we do something to help them? Like help us help them. They save us. You know what I mean? And so I felt like the minimum we could do is put a product out there that is safer and that keeps them safe. And then I found out that stock contractors, after talking with my stock contracting friends like Shad Smith with Survey Rodeo or Scott Burris with Stace Smith Pro Rodeo, a lot of times bulls actually get lame from stepping on them bells. Now, I don't know how long they're out for competition or whatnot, but I could see that like a metal bell, they're jumping high in the air, they step on it, they get lame for a few days. It could put them out for a rodeo that weekend. But I think the biggest thing outside of why I did it for the bull riders is what I think why associations are interested in this product is because it's a huge liability. And I don't know if you personally have, but I've been at a rodeo and I've seen them suckers fly off into the stands and about smoke people and or have hit people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really neat. So, for people who are hearing about this product and want to learn more, how can they get their hands on one and what does that process look like?
Yeah. So bear with me. This is, it's getting traction. I'm trying to do my best. I'm a one-man band right now, but the best way is reaching out to me on social media. I do have quite a few in stock right now. My wife and I mean, have been pouring them, doing it when I'm gone. She's been doing it, and we've been shipping them and getting them out the door. And so right now, the best thing is to go to my social media, which is at Nic Lica 14, and just send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram. All you have to do is I've been taking Venmo or PayPal, and then essentially just send me your email and your address. I ship it the next day, obviously excluding weekends. But I've created my entity brand, which is called Lica brand. My wife came up with that. That was pretty clever. And so I'm building out. So I have a lot of experience with e-commerce websites. Obviously, Beastmaster is an e-commerce website. And so I'm currently, right now, since I got back from this school, working on building out my e-commerce website. So you will be able to purchase the Licabell at licabrand.com. Right now, if you go to licabrand.com, it's just going to say it's hosted at GoDaddy. So I'm sorry if that brings you to a brick wall, but DM me. If you're really interested and want to write this minute, I'll have the website up and going probably here in probably less than a week or two at most. And those are ways you can get it. And I just started our Instagram page, Licabrand_official, because ironically, a lady I don't know has Lica brand, and she's not been on it since 2019. So
We hate to see that. Oh gosh. Well, not to put the cart ahead of the horse here, as I know you're trying to get systems and processes in place for the bell, but do you have any other ideas swirling around for what like a brand could be?
Yes. So so I read a book, and I'll tell it. It's called $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan. Kind of a different guy, but he was all about starting businesses, and it really gave me some just entrepreneurial spirit towards trying to believe in myself and going after things. But um, basically, what has happened is from that book, what I learned is listen to people's problems or try to figure out your own answers to your own problems, because usually you can create a business off of that, or you can create a service or a product or whatever, right? And it's been kind of fun because now this door's opened where people have actually come to me now and told me about different things in the industry that could be better. And so I already have another one that I really do want to start working on, but I also know in business you have to stay focused on your goal. And right now I am focused very much on pursuing the Licabell and getting it to market, and really would like to get it mandatory at some point in the industry, because it obviously serves a very great purpose, for lots of reasons, or, so yeah, that's where I'm. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, what advice would you give someone who maybe has an idea that they'd like to act on entrepreneurially, but they haven't quite made the jump yet?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a distinct answer that's like there's a one-stop shop way to do this. I think, well, okay, I'll tell you this. The biggest thing you need to do is just start. One thing that everyone does that I think is really, even I've done it, is you want to make a pretty website, you want to start an Instagram page, you want to do all these things, but you don't even know if the product or the service will sell. And so, I did it complete backwards this time, and I actually tried it on another product before this bell really took off. Was I've always sold cowboy hats for fun, and normally I buy some hats and then I sell them, and I always am guessing what people want. And I was like, you know what, this time I'm just gonna say, hey, pre-order now. If you want some hats, let me know. And I sold the most hats I ever sold in my life, and I didn't have to pick what styles people wanted for once, which was great. So that was nice. But I think sometimes we just try to get, like you said, the cart in front of the horse. And what that book had taught me, like, try to sell to 3 people and see if it's even a valid product, if people would do it. And I really did that with the bell before I ever even put it to market or even told people about it. As I called 3 guys up, said, hey, here's my idea. It wasn't even like made. The product wasn't finished. It wasn't done. And I sold 3 of them. I was like, I'm just going to see if I can sell these things, because I don't want to pour all this time and money into this if it doesn't actually pan out. But it proved it did. And I guess my encouraging to other people is just don't worry about making everything pretty. Just see at first if it's even a valid idea that people are interested in.
Most definitely. Well, is there anything else you'd like people to know about the product or the brand before we wrap things up?
Just follow, the page is brand new, but follow Licabrand_official on Instagram. I always, like I said at the beginning, I just try to be me at the end of the day. And I'm really excited that, actually, I want to say this. So I'm really excited because at the beginning of our conversation, I struggled with my identity with bull riding because I rode bulls for 19 years. I had a lot of success, especially to someone who comes from Detroit. I never made the NFR, or the PBR World Finals, but in my mind, I felt like I was a failure because I did it, right? But like I said, rode at Houston, San Antonio, Pendleton, Cheyenne, all of them. But I competed at them and had some success at them. But it's really cool, and I think even a bigger blessing from God that I will actually, with this bell, completely revolutionize and change the industry for the good. And so, I may not have made the NFR, but someday everyone will look back and laugh and say, well, that Nic Lica who used to ride bulls created a bell that kept people safe.
That's awesome. Well, this conversation has been so insightful, and I'm so appreciative of you sharing your story with us. And I think the really neat part of this conversation is it's going to be fun to look back even a year from now and just see how far the brand has come and, where the bell is being distributed. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and I so appreciate you allowing me to be on your platform, and it meant so much. When you messaged me the other day, I was like, "Oh wow, this is cool. Like, there's a little bit of traction here. Like, people are interested." So thank you for being the first. Thank you for taking a chance on me, and I just appreciate you giving me the opportunity to spread the message. So.
Oh, this is fun. I think the biggest takeaway from today's conversation is that initiative and relationships are what truly pay off. So, as Nic said, you can find him on social media, and we will be posting links to that as well, along with the podcast episode. As a reminder, all episodes of the podcast are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can watch our recordings now on YouTube, which is a new thing we have added here in season 4. So, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.